Good morning, everyone. My name is Khaled Hassanein, and I'm the Dean of the DeGroote School of Business. It is at McMaster University. It is a pleasure to join you at the Toronto Global Forum today. On behalf of McMaster University's DeGroote School of Business, we are proud to sponsor today's discussion. The forum brings together leaders from business, government, and academia to explore the forces shaping our shared future. Exactly the kind of cross-sector dialogue that we need right now. At DeGroote, we believe business education must not only keep pace with change, but help lead it, ensuring that innovation and technology serve people, organizations, and society. We are in a defining moment where artificial intelligence and digital transformation are redefining leadership. Our responsibility as educators is to prepare business leaders who are both technologically fluent and deeply human. Leaders who understand that progress depends as much on empathy and integrity as it does on technical skills and innovation. At DeGroote, we are focused on cultivating the balance. Our graduates are thoughtful, values-driven, and socially conscious. These are human differentiating skills in the age of AI, qualities that define the next generation of leadership. That's why we are proud to be launching 2 new Master of Management programs in AI and analytics, one full-time and one part-time, designed to prepare the leaders of tomorrow. These programs will empower students to harness data and AI responsibly and ethically. Our curriculum is designed for the long game, beyond the hype, equipping our students with future-ready leadership and sustainable competitive advantages. It reflects our belief that technology should not only drive performance, but advance the human good. Partnerships and conversations like this one are central to our mission. And collaborating across sectors ensures that we teach and research, what we teach and research remains relevant, impactful, and forward-looking. So as we begin this conversation on preparing future leaders for the age of AI, I look forward to hearing from our distinguished panelists and how we can work together to shape a future that is not only smarter, but more human. Thank you to the Toronto Global Forum for bringing us together, and thank you all for being part of this important dialogue today. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for providing that context for the conversation that we're about to have, but also for the leadership in terms of developing the types of programming that future leaders are going to need in this AI world. So it is now my pleasure to introduce Cinzia Bazzo, the Managing Director of SAGE, our moderator for this next session, and she will introduce her fabulous guests in just a moment. Let's welcome them.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be moderating the panel today. The topic couldn't be more timely. Preparing leaders for the age of AI. In a world where AI is rapidly reshaping how we work and lead, the question isn't just how we adapt, it's how we prepare leaders who are both technologically fluent and deeply human. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll explore how we bridge the education gap for today's leaders, why digital inclusion must go beyond access to tools, how curriculum design is evolving to meet the pace of disruption, what authentic leadership looks like in an AI-driven world, and how AI is being governed and strategically used at the top. So let's dive right in. I'm joined by a panel of experts who bring perspectives from academia, industry, and policy. And before we start, I'll have you all introduce yourself. So we'll start with you, Greg.
Hi, pleasure to be here. Greg Young, Vice President of Cybersecurity and CorpDev with Trend Micro. We're a $2 billion cybersecurity company.
Very nice, thank you. Aruna?
Hi, Aruna Jayanthi. I'm responsible for Capgemini's business in Canada and other parts of the world. And we are primarily focused on helping organizations navigate through their digital transformation and AI journeys.
Thank you, Aruna. Indrani.
My name is Indrani Butany. I come to you today wearing two hats. First, I'm Managing Director for Canada for Atrium Economics. Atrium Economics is a US-based firm just expanding now into Canada. We do regulatory strategy in electricity, natural gas, nuclear, helping clients navigate the energy transition. But I'm also the chair of the Dean's Advisory Council. You just saw our dean, Khaled, speaking just before the start of the panel. And so I chair the advisory council at the DeGroote School of Business.
Thank you. And Dr. Sarah King.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah. I am the manager of academic experiential learning at the DeGroote School of Business. So my team and I are responsible for building the experiential opportunities that prepare students to be the leaders that they need to be for this future that is so disruptive, but also has so much opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we'll dive right in. From each of your vantage points, what is the single most urgent shift we need to make in how we prepare future leaders for this AI-powered world? And Indrani, I'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Cinzia, for the question. I think there are a couple of things here that we need to consider. First, there needs to be an overall mindset shift from control and optimization to curiosity and stewardship. If I start with within the energy sector, though this is true across every system, AI challenges us. It challenges us to move from being just controllers of the information to stewards of the consequences. So the most urgent shift then is cultivating leaders who can hold this paradox: efficiency and ethics, innovation and inclusion. And so then when you think about integrative literacy, leaders need to understand, and this is my view, that leaders need to understand that AI isn't just a tool. It's part of a broader ecosystem. And so it's not just one thing that sits on the side, you pick up the hammer when you need the hammer. It's far greater, far deeper than that, and needs to be integrated such that new leaders in general can learn to speak across disciplines: technology, regulation, human behavior, as well as sustainability. And this ensures that AI serves our societal outcomes. So this isn't the rage of the robots, the rage of the machines, and it serves our societal purposes. And then lastly, I would say that governance and accountability are key. So in my sector, so utilities and infrastructure, we're already seeing AI used in its predictive capabilities. So load forecasting, resilience modeling against weather outcomes. But the risk isn't the algorithms. I mean, that part is key and it's exceptionally helpful. And it takes away some of the basic grunt work that otherwise would take a human hours upon days to do. But really, it's about leaders not knowing the questions to ask when they're using these tools. And I know that my colleague Sarah will get to this as well, but this is why we're so proud at DeGroote that we've just launched 2 master's programs, as Khaled referenced, related to AI. We are priming the pump and working with the leaders of today and tomorrow in order to navigate this world of disruption. And I wouldn't say it's a brave new world, it's the brave next world.
Yeah,
thank you.
Aruna, when we spoke last week, you mentioned relative to the shift that we have to make in inclusivity. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Thanks, Cinzia. So I think let me start first with what the expectation is of leaders. Okay? I think today there's a lot of fear about AI. Okay? Will it cause loss in jobs? What is the impact? There's a lot of insecurity as well. So Capgemini, we did a research over 500 organizations in 15 countries, including Canada. And the one thing that we found is that, a lot of people are trained I think most organizations today train everybody nearly on AI, but the actual usage is only 15% of the managers use it, and 20% of the, the staff down the line. So I think there is a real fear. There's not enough adoption. Again, I'm talking averages. Of course, there are companies I've heard here that RBC is phenomenally good, Loblaws is good. So there are, just to take a few names, there are exceptions to the rule, but by and large, the adoption is pretty low. And that comes partly by fear and partly because of the journey mapping is not very clear. So in my view, what needs to happen is leaders need to actually shift the narrative from, okay, these are the challenges, this is the potential loss, to, hey, really, that's not the case. There's a huge opportunity out there, okay? There's an opportunity for us as an organization to improve our revenue, to reach out to customers we have not done before. There's an opportunity to improve cost, to improve productivity. So that narrative shift needs to happen very quickly, and that can happen by identifying clearly where are the pockets of promise, what can happen. So just as an example, Cinzia, so people talk about, oh, we can get 40% productivity gain. Does that mean that 40% jobs are lost? No, I look at it the other way around, okay? Hey, you can do 40% more work. Okay, so I think there's an urgent need for organizations to shift that narrative and paint the picture of what really is possible. Then you can start the execution.
Yes, and I will say my real life experience is that, and I was talking to my husband this morning driving in, we don't see AI as a way of decreasing, the number of employees that work for us. We see AI as a way to enable us to grow 2x. So very much, in line with what you're thinking. As it relates to curiosity, Sarah, do you want to weigh in on that?
Absolutely, and I think the things that I was going to say have been already said so eloquently. I think the most urgent shift we need to make, and speaking from an academic perspective, is we need to broaden that sense of curiosity, that mindset of curiosity, beyond the silos that we think about it in. And at the university, that's research, that's teaching, that's outreach. Those are separate activities at the moment. And we're separate from the corporate clients. We're separate from our community partners. We're separate from our communities themselves. I think the most urgent shift that needs to happen in order to respond to the opportunity that AI offers is to break down those silos and to start working together. And that's what experiential learning is trying to do. That's what we're trying to do at DeGroote with the new building we are opening, the McLean Center for Collaborative Discovery, is to foster that working together as humans. Those are the things the robots are never going to be able to do. And we need to augment the work that both my colleagues have described here, by bringing those sort of human-centered knowledges, human-centered skills, putting them at the center, curiosity, discovery, exploration, and moving towards a place where we work in tandem rather than in silos.
Love that. Greg, Indrani mentioned governance. And in the world that we're in, when trust is imperative, how should leaders be thinking about protecting their organization and their customers' information? And then as a follow-up, maybe, what do we have to let go of and what can we introduce in thinking about that?
Yeah, I think our experience around the world right now is that for new leaders coming up and having to grapple with this, there's opportunity and threat. So from the threat side, it's encouraging that we aren't expecting to see any novel new kinds of threats from AI to your business. It's going to be just better, faster, stronger. Much like the opportunity side is going to be, we can do things better, faster, and stronger. So, attackers doing the things they're doing today, or the possibility of losing data or not being able to do your business, those remain constant. It's just the speed is going to be greater and the impact is going to be greater. We've learned a lot of lessons in the past from implementing new technologies, and I think this has to be treated much like that. When we brought in cloud, when we brought in, even the internet, there was often this some bad business assumptions made by leaders about not protecting themselves. So on the opportunity side, I think it's definitely moving ahead. And instead of focusing on the threat, how can we protect ourselves better? And that's been the real opportunity using AI itself. Much like in business, though, one of the surprising things is that, yes, there are these incremental gains that we talked about, but the it's often underestimated what can be done with AI in business. So I think that encouraging leaders to do more and ask about taking that extra step, I think is critical. And not to expect regulations to hold your hand for it. I sit on the Canadian Forum for Digital Infrastructure Resilience. One of the working groups I'm on is the one on AI. It's half government, half industry. And I think what we've recognized as the industry members is that there's great regulations going on, leadership in Canada from the regulatory side, but only in some areas, so that protection side or resilience is not there. So one of the aspects that we're working on right now is sovereignty. So as no matter which country you're in, I think recognizing that there's sovereignty aspects, but it's not about making it in Canada, it's about recognizing that other people's regulations shouldn't be driving you, their priorities, and especially when you're in conflict or in competition with other countries. That's a recognition you've got to make, and you can make decisions based on that that can guide your business.
Excellent. Aruna, how do we think about seasoned leaders and bringing them along the AI journey?
So when you look at current organizations, they are traditionally, you talk about a pyramid, right? There's a manager, there's team leaders, there's people below that, and then there's the entry-level workers. I think, first of all, we need to assess how is the organization going to change in the new model, okay? I don't believe it will be a pyramid anymore. There are two theories that are emerging, that it could be like an hourglass, so the middle management really becomes thin, and then you have a fatter bottom, or it could actually be a diamond shape. Okay, so there are still emerging theories around how it will evolve the organization, and it will obviously depend on the nature of the industry. Now, as leaders, what one needs to recognize is, for each of these roles, how is the role changing? So, for example, content, the role will change from, for example, a content creator to a content reviewer. Okay, you won't have the people creating, because the content creation can be done some other way, but then you have to review the content to make sure that, for example, a copywriting, it adheres to your brand guidelines, the tone of the company and everything else. So the role of the people will change. So as leaders, I think one needs to take every role, you literally have to look at it as in the life of a salesperson, the life of a copywriter, the life of this one, look at their daily things and look at how their workflow changes and how their role changes. And I think that's very important for leaders. And that's the only way, in my view, that you can really build the future organization that is really taking the benefits of Gen AI.
Yeah, I mean, that actually rings true for everything, whether it's a customer or an employee or a leader, et cetera, right? What is the day in the life of? How do I remove friction?
Maybe I'll add to that. I think that when you consider where we're at today, we still, from a teaching standpoint, tend to focus or over-focus on the technical capabilities. And we're at this crossroads now where the fact that we're human, that's what we need to be double-clicking on if we're double-clicking on anything. So that emotional intelligence that we can bring to the equation, the true real-life experiences, those are the elements that we now need to bring to bear in this human-machine interaction. And if we take that a step further and go back to what we're doing at McMaster, experiential learning is at the heart of how we promote this. People need to, my colleagues have talked about breaking down silos. Those silos need to be retired, and we need to bring to bear the engineering student who talks to the person who has Indigenous or First Nations experiences, policymakers with ethicists, so that the experiential learning is cross-section, cross-experience, which is something that no machine can create. And as Aruna rightly pointed out, that base of basic content creation, and you see this across all sectors. I mean, lawyers are talking about how they won't need, not that we won't need articling students, that should not be a rumor that you leave this room with, but the grunt work that articling students would otherwise be forced to do can quickly be thrown into pick your AI engine and taken away, so that the real value add and the bigger brain learning, bigger brain impacts can come from the humans.
And I'll add on to that, because you talked about my favorite thing, experiential learning. In academic language, from the literature, from educational theory, what we're talking about are higher order thinking skills. We no longer need to train our students to write an essay. We need to train students to create a message, to think clearly, to be able to present that message in a way that will reach multiple audiences. I hear this all the time in sort of higher education circles about what do we do? There's a lot of doom and gloom in higher ed about AI. Oh no, now what? Our students, they're getting ChatGPT to write their essays. Then give a better assignment, right? The answer is not take away this magical tool. Imagine in 1996 if we were teaching and said, no internet use for you, must go to card catalog instead. We didn't, I think, those conversations happened, but the sector shifted to embrace a new technology. And so when my team and I are working with faculty members, we're talking about how can we use these tools to augment what students are doing. So one of the core elements of experiential learning is reflection. Experiential learning, you can take this, the definition of experiential learning is learning by reflecting on doing. It's not just the doing, it's the reflecting on and making meaning and making sense by doing that reflection. We have had our TAs for our second year course code AI agents to help students write better reflections. So when they are writing, the AI agent is saying, you didn't give an example here, or how could you make this stronger, or what were your feelings about that experience and how did that shape what you learned from it? So instead of putting up more walls, instead of living with that sort of fear mentality that Aruna, you mentioned, what's the opportunity to live with an abundance mentality and acknowledge that this is an opportunity to shift what we need to do. Now my classroom looks so different than it did 3 years ago. I don't need to teach sentence structure. I don't need to teach how to write a good essay. What I need to do is teach students to say, what have you learned and how do you apply that in a new situation?
Right, so how do you make decisions as well, right?
Exactly.
Based on what you've learned. I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking about how useful ChatGPT would have been for me when I was in school. So
Right.
feeling a little cheated right now, but that's
We
okay.
had to do it the hard way.
Yeah, we had to do it everything the hard way, yes. Okay, so to the wider group, I'd like to hear from you on your individual perspectives. Just think about what messages should we be sharing with entrants to the workforce today? And in your opinion, are they ready to lead in this new reality? Maybe we'll start with you, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the newer generation coming up are greatly enabled because of their experience, going through their education when this technology is being introduced. I think what may be coached in more is the resilience aspects of what the impacts are on the business, that there's this great enthusiasm, but for example, energy costs alone can derail projects or be a surprise to the business. And also being a bit skeptical, that teaching some healthy skepticism about technology, especially if you're going to use it to generate something that's going to go and be critical to your business, something like a quarterly results or something like that. These checks and balances, whether it be in coding, whether it be in material rewrite, whether it be in contract language, I think that's the kind of steps that can replace some of these, sentence structure and these new skills that we need to do this. And teaching about resilience in business is something that's not often done.
So I'm hearing resilience, I'm hearing curiosity again, skepticism. Aruna?
Message not just for the new entrants, but at all levels. I would say that the one message is AI augments and empowers. It doesn't take away, it doesn't demean you, it doesn't diminish your this. I think it can help you become the best version of yourself. And that's the message that we'd like people to remember and as they build their careers. The second is AI is not for everything. It's not the answer for every single thing. It's expensive, as he said, and there's a cost to it. So it has to be used judiciously where it makes sense. I mean, if you use it for just plain automation, it's a waste of resource. Okay, so you have to really explore where it is used. So be judicious, and then do not let it degrade your critical thinking, which is one of the, I think, studies that I think everybody saw, that, do not let it take over your intellectual capabilities and your critical thinking.
Yeah. It's very key. Thank you. Indra.
Well, I'll start with It's too bad that we don't have to teach sentence structure anymore because I'm still trying to figure out what my teenager means by 6, 7. But that aside, I think that when we think about organizations and whether new leaders or seasoned leaders, we tend to park risk for the most senior levels of conversation. And so when I consider enterprise risk, we've been talking about, first we've been talking about cybersecurity as the big buzz. Cybersecurity is table stakes now. When you think about cybersecurity and AI risk, I think what I'd like for leaders to remember moving forward is that data integrity is enterprise integrity. And I feel like that is getting lost in we can shove everything into pick your AI engine, because I don't favor any, there's Chat, Gemini, whatever. But there's a risk to putting all that data in an open engine. So number one, that. So leaders need to consider that. Emerging leaders need to be taught that. It has been said that AI is not for everything. I think the third piece is that don't forget that you think. You have a brain. And I see this in my teenagers, one's in university and one's still in school, that the easy answer, push the Staples easy button, is to put it into an AI engine. And so business leaders putting key questions into an AI engine. But then where's the thinking and the experience that follows? Challenging the challenging the AI bot to question whether the answer is correct. Asking the question in several different ways. I think that critical thinking and those probative skills are what needs to be fostered in leaders moving forward. And I think it needs to be fostered across senior level tables as well, that we challenge each other, because when people are coming to the table and they're just spouting what somebody ran through a chat GPT for them and gave them a briefing note, well, did you think about it? What do you think about it? And what are the impacts of it? Particularly as some of these very critical items hit communities, infrastructure. I mean, these are major decisions that impact real people and real lives.
I love that. Sarah?
I'd like to flip the question, because I'd like to speak to the leaders who are hiring those entry-level folks that are coming through the programs that we're building and that we're developing. I think there's an opportunity to flip the narrative and say, not what don't they know, but what do they know and what can they bring. I think there's often a conversation about the students aren't resilient or they don't have these skills. But I think it's important to think about what they do have and who our students that are graduating are. Dr. Corey Seemiller is one of my academic idols. She does research, generational research, and her major publication is called Gen Z, she's American, goes to college and talks about what motivates Gen Z and who are these students. And I've seen this in my career. I've been teaching in higher ed for 15 years. When I started teaching, I was firmly in the millennial me generation. And the questions I was getting from students is, what are you, university, going to do for me, student, so that I get a good job when I graduate? And we responded to that cohort by increasing investment and increasing opportunities for things like co-ops and internships that have a really direct pathway to employment. And we heard from our employer partners that that's what they wanted. They wanted students who had experience in their field, for some in their company. And what I'm hearing now from my students is, I can't wait. I'm not interested in waiting 4 or 5 years to make an impact. So it's, how are you, university, going to create the environment and the experiences in which I can start to make a difference while I'm still in school? So these students that are coming, they have that curiosity. They are so cause motivated. They want to think about the ethical and sustainable impact of things like AI. And I think we need to be creating the experiences that allow them to cultivate that. So I would like to say to the employers and the leaders in the room that we need to be leaning into experiential opportunities that dive into that messiness and give students the opportunity to challenge themselves in the way they want to. Immediately after this, I am leaving to run back to our Burlington campus where our MBA students are doing, we call it Grit Week. Grit stands for Growing, Resilient, and Integrative Thinkers. Right now, they are presenting, the first round of pitches are done. They're doing a 3-round pitch competition today. We gave them a case on Thursday, partnered with Siemens Canada. The question is, the case essentially is AI data centers use a ton of water to cool these data centers, and there's all this hot water left over. Our students are creating a business and sustainability-focused pitch for what can Siemens do with all that leftover water. They're doing that right now. Those project-based, those problem-based learning opportunities are the ways that students get to practice those integrative, those higher order thinking skills, and they're coming to you already having done it. And so I think we need to rethink what entry level means, because as folks have said, that sort of grunt work, what we thought about as entry level work, doesn't need to exist in the way it did before. How can you harness the work that we're putting in at universities to empower students to think in new ways, to solve challenging problems, and responding to them where they say, I want to make a difference right now? How can you create the context in which they can do that? So I think it's less about what do we need to tell future leaders? I want you to know who those future leaders are, and they are exceptional. And I am really excited about the ways that we could work collaboratively in breaking down those silos so that students and graduates, when they come to you, you're already recognizing what they bring.
I love that passion. Thank you for that. So would your one piece of advice to new entrants to the market be, know your worth, know what you're bringing? Do you want to finish that sentence?
Yeah, absolutely. Know your worth, know what you're bringing, and know how to talk about what you've already done. I've been an employer. I've interviewed students for many, many jobs over the years. They almost never talk about what they've done in their courses. Ask them, because they've had these opportunities, maybe thinking about how your entry-level hiring works, or how your co-op pipelines work, or how your engagement with the universities with whom you partner look. So that one piece of advice is, you've got a lot to say. And I think it's showing the value, but also that the system needs to shift so that they can do that.
And leaders need to harness the power of what they bring.
Absolutely.
Indrani, if you can give one piece of advice, knowing how fast AI is moving and evolving, what would you tell someone about the kind of leader that they need to become in this next era?
I think that leaders need to be the kind of person who's not afraid to pause. I think that's the kind of leaders that we need. A leader that's unafraid to pause in a world that is driven by speed, instant gratification. Be willing to pause. I mean, I really think that that's the human superpower. Your ability to reflect, and this kind of ties to what Sarah just said, that you've had great experience. Whether you're the seasoned leader or the new leader, your experiences define you, and they also make you outstanding, like outstanding in a good way. Stand out. Be outstanding in your ability to pause. That reflection, as well as data, is what is going to drive the future. And so in an AI-driven world, taking that time, being reflective, being a reflective leader, I think is the new superpower.
Great, thank you. Aruna.
Thank you. I would say authentic leaders, leading by example, not scared to say, I don't know, willing to learn from people at any level, being empathetic. Well, there's a lot of things, okay, but I hope that gives you a sense of it. But I think the most important is learning, guiding the teams, and setting the example directly.
So traditional great leadership characteristics.
Yeah, no different from what you see in great leaders.
Simple. Greg?
Yeah, I think a more orthogonal learning. So trying to learn from areas in your company you wouldn't normally learn from younger people, from those different backgrounds, seeking that out continual curiosity, things like micro-certifications. There's some great research out of Stats Canada showing that the friction for unemployment is greatly lowered for people who do that, but also for leadership. Doing that kind of certification yourself, they're short, they're bite-sized, and you can quickly learn the difference between chat-based AI versus special purpose AI and learn what impact that would have on the business. And the last one is look for those magnitudes of opportunity, where instead of the small incremental ones, those great ones. So for example, today there's a whole bunch of startups that have sprung out from trying to manage the costs of your AI for you. It's a whole new business line, because of this business of tokens, which are how the economy is running in AI now. So these kinds of new opportunities, why shouldn't your business be looking for those and pushing the edges of your traditional risk management?
Great. So we're all leaders during a time of AI. Is there anything that you would like to talk about that we haven't talked about so far that you'd like to contribute? Greg, we'll start with you.
I think the greatest one would be that digging into the technology hands-on yourself, even if you don't do it in front of your staff, having to learn that or consult your teams or teams or others. But no, it's imperative because again, there's so much hype right now in this, both for positive and for negative. Some of it's real, some of it's not. It's reality that's here. But I think having to get some of that experience yourself. So to the point about experiential learning, you have to get involved with this, and you have to be curious and have to keep reading. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
100% agree with Greg. I think there's so many who are not touching it themselves, so it's fairly theoretical, so that's needed. But in addition, I'd say that leaders need to recognize that AI is all about data. Okay, and they have to understand the power of data. What is it that they have in their organization? What is outside? Without that, there's no good AI.
I think we need to remember that there's a generation of the workforce now that will enter not knowing a world that didn't have AI. Right. So I think that's exponentially different. And the uptake of AI, we all know this, I'm not saying anything that's ground shattering. The uptake of AI is more rapid than any other technological uptake, period. So, the kid who's in, and I have a child who's in grade 8, when he hits university, when he hits grad school, when he hits the workforce, anywhere along the way, even in summer jobs, these are humans where their world includes AI. Yeah. Talk to them. Don't be afraid of them. And we need to not stand on our sit on our high horses thinking because we've been doing whatever for 25 years, that therefore we can't learn from the summer student. Because there still tends to be that top-down approach. So I'd really like to encourage us all to be willing to walk down the hall to the cubicle. And, I'd prefer that people were in offices, but that's a different story. I think that we need to be face-to-face. But have those conversations and leverage the people that don't know a world that's different.
If I can just add to something interesting that you said, there will be a generation who didn't know what it was like before this wave of technology. Equally, there is a generation that doesn't understand technology, and I'm quite passionate about that because unless we build an inclusive workforce, an inclusive community, we are going to fail as a society. So I think for leaders to understand how to carry along the people in not just in the organization who are not very technologically adept, but also the consumers. So designing products and services for consumers who might not know that, and equally, so we are going to have a straddling of two completely different types of people in our organization as well as in our consumer base, and it's important for leaders to recognize that and build to that.
Bring everyone along.
What I'm hearing and what my colleagues are saying is the way we've always done things isn't good enough. And we're talking about a sea of change. And I feel like we're trying to plug an existing system, an existing structure into a changing world. And so I think one of the things we haven't talked about is what structures are going to have to change. I think you started talking about it in terms of leadership models, right? That pyramid might not be the best model in a world that AI has transformed. I think we as universities are some of the most risk-averse organizations in the world, the most change-averse organizations in the world. I still have professors who use the card catalog and aren't looking up journal articles on the internet, let alone AI and ChatGPT and how that can help structure those things. And so I think we all have to be looking at what systems and structures are we part of, and how do we need to change those systems and structures. Writing essays in class isn't going to work anymore, so what has to change? But bigger than that, does the way we think about teaching and learning have to change? Does the way we think about leadership have to change? Does the way we think about the economy need to change? Does the way we think about governance need to change to respond to the rapid pace of change that we're seeing? And I think we're hearing it needs to be more inclusive, it needs to be broader, it needs to be bigger, it needs to be bolder. And I think there's a real risk that folks will try and ride the wave and sort of see where it lands them. And I think we need to be leaning into the opportunity for change that's being presented to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, with a few minutes left, I want to thank you all very much for your rich and thought-provoking discussions. What we've heard today is clear. Preparing future leaders in the age of AI isn't just about teaching technology. It's about cultivating wisdom and adaptability and authenticity. Whether in classrooms, boardrooms, or policy circles, we have a shared responsibility to ensure that leadership evolves as fast as the tools we use. Thank you to all of you, the panelists, and thank you to all of you for being a part of the conversation.
Well, it sounds like we are as prepared for the future as we possibly can be. Thank you very much to these experts for bringing their opinions and their thoughts and their guidance to the stage today. We're very grateful to them for their forward-focused thinking. And it is time for us, friends, to transition out of this room and into the foyer for some networking. If you can't get enough of AI, then you are indeed in luck, because you can just head to Studio 6. That's in the ballroom down the hall. There is another conversation about sorry, I keep saying this wrong, AI. And in this case, it's about the urban energy transition. So that's going to be of great interest to some of you. We'll meet back here for lunch in about 30 minutes or so, but I will ask you to make your way out as quickly as you can so that the staff here has the opportunity to change this over for lunch. Thank you. We'll see you soon.